Welcome, everyone. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan McDermott, your host. Let's welcome our panel. We have Pam Adger with us. She's there somewhere. We'll get back to her in just a moment. Michael Ellis, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thanks, Dan. How are you?
Doing quite well. And we have Dr. Alan Furstenberg. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, Dan.
Is that a wine glass or a fish bowl, Michael?
It could be considered either,
It's
but there are no
large.
fish in it tonight.
Okay. It will not remain full for long.
No. It will also not remain empty for long.
Okay. All right. So, folks watching, just to let you know, we can see your comments from Twitter, from Google Plus, maybe not. I don't know.
Didn't work last week.
Yeah. So we're gonna pull a recode and just not listen to your comments. No, I'm just kidding. But I know you can comment on YouTube, and I'll see that in my little dashboard here. It tells me somewhere activity right here, so I'll be able to see that. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and I'll be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow. I think it's the easiest way is wiqoradio.com, wiqoradio.com, and then just click listen. And that's at 8 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Right after CBS News, I'll be discussing immigration, which was in the news this week. Okay, so our first topic, if you want to find our topics, it's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/GPW topics. Will take you to our live document that we're updating as we go. Okay, so first up is good news in the United States and bad news in Europe. So for Google in court. So let's discuss first. Google has a free speech right in search results. A court has confirmed, basically saying a San Francisco court ruled last week that Google has the right to arrange its search results as it pleases, which confirms the company's long-held position while underscoring the stark difference in how U.S. and European authorities seek to regulate the search giant. So first we'll talk about the U.S. I guess, Alan, this was someone had sued because they were, whatever company it was, they had a service that Google competed with, and their allegation was that they were higher in search results on Bing and other search engines, and that Google was intentionally dropping them because they had a competing product. Google responded with what's called a SLAPP lawsuit and has won. So what would you like to add?
Not much, really. I mean, it's, in the same way that any newspaper, corporation, person, or other entity has the right to express whatever they want to do, seems to me to make sense that Google has the right to do the same thing.
Well, in fact, it's even in the complaint itself, in the suit documents, it described that their argument for their case was exactly the evidence that convicts them, I think, because they were saying in the same sentence that Google was abusing its power, but they could prove that only because there were two other players in the marketplace that they could freely choose to use that ranked them higher. So to me, it didn't make sense. I mean, it just didn't stand. It didn't stand at all. On the argument just didn't work.
I don't have a problem if Alan has his website, or if on his Google Plus page or whatever, if he has an ad prominently for his book. right? And
This
he's
isn't
not going to put
advertising. Dan, focus. Focus. This has nothing to do with advertising.
on your posts. Buy my book. You can't put an ad on Google Plus. You could put a, I mean, I guess you could.
This has nothing to do with advertising. Stick to the topic, Dan.
No, I am sticking to the topic. What I'm saying is that Google wants to tout its own products or diminish Amazon in search results because it doesn't get a piece of that. Was there any determination that they were in fact juicing the algorithm, or was it just coincidence?
Case addressed that problem, that part of the issue.
They did or did not?
I do not believe they did. I don't believe the case addressed that. I mean, I don't think the results of the case, the judgment addressed that. They basically said Google has the right to do whatever it wants with its search results.
Okay.
And I think that's true because essentially there are other players in the search market that you can use. If you don't like the way Google presents search results, you pick a different search engine.
Right. Yeah, so this is a good ruling.
Well, but hang on. Michael, here's the argument, though. How do I know that I'm getting bad search results that would prompt me to go to another search engine?
You wouldn't unless
Okay.
you like really... Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
I was just going to say it's common practice to check all of the search engines, right? I mean, if I owned a company and I want to see where I rank, I'm not going to just go to Google. I'm going to go to Yahoo. I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to go to, if it's an international company, I'm going to go to what's China's
Baidu or whatever.
Yeah, Baidu, whatever
Alibaba.
whatever it is. I'm going to check because it's part of my business.
But if I'm a user, I'm not going to check. I'm just going to pick one and get the results and go with it. And if that one is stacking the results so that I'm not seeing important information, then how would I know that I'm getting bad results?
You wouldn't, but that's the company's position, right?
Well, the company's position is that its clients weren't finding it when it should have found it.
Right. So the point is that the consumer is searching Google and not finding that company, and the company's saying that's unfairly twisted in Google results to favor Google other products.
Hasn't this been solved prior to this, though? Like with Kayak and the other companies? Haven't there been other similar lawsuits that Google's won over and over?
Oh, I don't know if Google's won. You mean that have been won by those other companies?
No, I thought this was like settled law. I thought that this had been litigated previously.
Google had been the defendant in prior cases. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
There were other examples of it. I remember Sabre with American Airlines presenting American Airlines flights first to all Sabre travel agents. The problem was that they had essentially a monopoly in the travel agency business, so they lost that case because there was not another mechanism for the travel agents to do the search. If they had Sabre terminals, it was not easy to switch and check another alternative travel system. So they lost that case, and it made sense to me that they lost that case.
So
The same reason-
American Airlines owned Sabre and required agents to use Sabre in order to book rather than like other ways.
Not really required it because there were a couple competing systems, but they were so dominant that they had a de facto monopoly in the travel agency business. But the real problem for them came when they started stacking American Airlines flights ahead of United and Delta, and I think at that time Pan Am and whatever the others were, TWA, on the Sabre terminals as results for travel agents. So American got an unfair advantage that the travel agents couldn't readily work around.
It would be interesting to know what this judge would have ruled in that case.
Yeah, or if whatever case law this judge used to make his ruling. I don't know if you could ever find that. That would be interesting.
You'd have to be a real wonk in
You
that.
probably can't use Google to find that, I suppose.
It's on search results page 8.
Yeah, you might find it on Bing at the top page.
Usually they do use they would cite case law in the notes because I read a lot of these court cases.
Yeah.
Even the Supreme Court does.
Hmm.
All right, so we've lost Alan briefly. Did he say anything?
He did not. Just
Okay.
that there he comes back again.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the next story here. Google's been fined for not taking down the right to be forgotten links worldwide. This is just completely nuts. This is even for European standards. This is out there. A French court.
No. Nope. I'm going to disagree with you on this one.
All
But
right.
go ahead and read the explanation first.
There are extenuating circumstances in this case. I get that, but
Go read the explanation first.
a French court has convicted Google of failing to comply with the right to be forgotten case after it took down links on its French subsidiary but failed to do so globally. So my comment, and then I'll throw it to Alan, is they absolutely can control a French company, but they can't tell a U.S. division what to do. But maybe I'm wrong. So go ahead, Alan.
So your and Michael's position on the last issue was that that there were lots and lots of alternatives to Google. So therefore, Google was not acting in a monopolistic way. And yet now on this one, now that we're saying, hey, there's an alternative to Google.fr called Google.com, that Google shouldn't be bound the same way. And I think that's hogwash.
I'm not sure is that really what we're saying? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
No.
There's some dude. Okay, there's some guy who was falsely accused of something. Apparently,
Now, mind you, I think the European right to be forgotten is total hogwash. I think I think the European courts made a mistake in this. I think the implementation of it's bad and stupid, and I think any number of other things are wrong. However, I think France has an interestingly legitimate statement to say that deleting it just from Google.fr but not Google.com may be a problem.
question, Alan: are they saying delete it from the Google.com that I see, or only the Google.com that you can access in France?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it?
Indeed. So here's
Do we know an answer? Or
No, I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I don't know what they would say they want. What I would say is that having it that Google.fr and Google.com should give the same results if you're accessing it from within France.
I agree with that.
I
yes.
think that they have the right to say that Google.com can't show it in France, but I don't think
Right.
they can affect what I can see.
Right.
So Dan Sheffet, a lawyer practicing in France, first sued the French subsidiary. So they were establishing this as a French subsidiary that was ordered in August over defamation lodged at him and his firm by a gossip site that, among other things, falsely accused him of losing his license to practice law in France and Denmark. So we've established they're calling it straight up defamation. They're not saying an allegation. The French court sided with him, told Google to yank certain URLs on a worldwide basis. Google only took down the sites from Google.fr and ignored subsequent demands based on the court order. Removing links from FR didn't help much, he said, given his clients include those from other countries. Now the French child is paying for the sins of its U.S. parent. A judge has handed down in September. Google France is facing fines of €1,000, about $1,200 a day, plus €1,500 to cover the plaintiff's costs. I don't think a U.S. judge can tell a French company what to do in France, or vice versa. That's my point. They can say you can't show it to a French IP number. But again, this is total Streisand effect. But probably good for the guy, because now people seeing this would say, "Oh, he's not a crook." In
Or
fact, probably the stories about this case that that are defending him, are good for his character, are probably far more prominent in search results now than anything that was in there before. So he benefits.
Why? Because there are more of them, or because they're more recent? What would make them move up?
Because, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of news stories that are quoting this guy and his firm's name in these news reports, and probably this would surface farther up in search than his
Yeah.
actual website, or how he would appear in some law directory or that gossip thing. I don't know why he wouldn't sue the gossip site that
That
lied about it.
exactly. If there's a place that needed to be sued, it was the people that did the defamation.
Well,
No.
and again, here's the question: is we don't know if he did or didn't. That wasn't in dispute in this case.
Well, that's true.
But the question also is, okay, so what if he did sue that site and said that and one of the settlements is that the site needed to remove the offending web page from the server? Would Google now have an obligation to remove the cached version with the Wayback Machine?
Yeah. No.
And it does not, and I don't think it does.
Right.
What is both the legal and moral obligation of Google in this case?
Well, anybody who would go to archive. Are you talking about archive.org?
Yes.
Google doesn't own that, do they?
No.
And they don't. I'm sure they don't have a French presence, so I'm sure France
No.
can't tell them what to do.
But I'm not. I'm generalizing the question. If the site removed the offending page, but Google didn't from its index,
Right.
should Google? Or if archive.org made a copy of that page and Google indexed the archive, what's the right thing?
Yeah.
How would you handle this, Alan? Would you?
Depends who I was.
What do you think's the right way to deal with this? If the guy has a beef, that's legit. I get that. This site lied about him, and it's impacting his business. Should Google just ignore that, or should they put a disclaimer saying that a court has ruled that the information in this link amounts to defamation? Click
Here's
here
the
for an
pro-
explanation, or should they remove it, or what?
Here's the problem with any court trying to rule, any court below an international court trying to rule on something on the internet. And that's that you're now subject to local jurisdiction
Yep.
being applied globally, which is nonsensical. It's not even bad, it's nonsensical.
So I was
Because
right, and you were the other thing?
No, I just said that you've got a problem when dealing with it. Because, well, I go back to my point. So if the site was forced to take down the page, that doesn't undo the damage in any way, shape, or form because you've got these copies of it still floating around. And no way to get rid of those copies.
Right.
Okay.
But is there any fix for this then?
No. Well, the fix for it is to have an international court being able to make an order valid.
Hell no, we're going to not do that.
Well, wait a minute. You, I don't care who the you know. I don't care who rules that this page should be taken down. There is absolutely nothing to prevent legions of people screenshotting or copying or duplicating or any of those other things. You know, there's just no way. Once your shit's out there, it's out there, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't care who rules that it needs to be taken down. If the person who is bringing the suit has has an expectation that the information is going to be removed, then they're high. 'Cause
Well,
it's not
but
gonna happen.
to be fair, Pam, it's funny you've got us all trained. Whenever you talk, we shut up. We're scared. Um, anyway, so
It's
it's
actually.
true. Okay, so here's my response, Pam. If the guy is being negatively impacted, and like if let's say New York Post page 6 said that I had been arrested for 6 DUIs and killed somebody, and it was just blatantly not true. I've never been arrested for DUI. I have a driver, so and I was, offering some sort of service, a lawyer, consultant, whatever, some sort of person, and that was like the first thing because everyone stalks a prospective service provider on the internet. I stalk all my employees before I consider hiring them. I'm Facebook, everything, and so I could see because Google has over 90% of Europe's search, so I could definitely see that it would have a negative impact and that removing it would have a less of a negative impact.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is the guy has a legitimate beef. I feel bad for him, but the authority of the French government and its entire legal infrastructure ends at the French border or wherever their international water line is. That's my take.
So Dan,
Yes, sir.
what about copyright? It's the exact same issue. If I violated your copyright in another jurisdiction, what rights do you have for remuneration?
Wouldn't I have to sue? I mean, if I pirated your book in England, I have not committed a U.S. crime. I don't believe. I don't know how that works.
No, well, it gets murky there because we have cross copyright agreements with various countries. So we have treaties with other countries that say we will honor each other's copyrights.
We don't have a treaty like that on this case because the U.S. thinks this is stupid. Congress would never go for this because it would violate the First Amendment.
Really? Really? We don't have anti-fraud laws?
No, no, no,
Wait,
no, no. The
we
first.
don't have,
I'm
we don't have
talking
laws
about.
against libel and slander?
No, no, no.
Yeah,
Correct.
isn't the information bad?
I'm sorry, Pam.
Yes. No? Isn't the information wrong?
It's incorrect. According to this article, they said it's absolute defamation, and it's incorrect that they said his law license had been removed or had been lost in Denmark and in France, and that that's provably not true. But the link remains live. His real beef is not with Google; it's with that tabloid site or whatever it is. But I think in this case, we're never going to have a treaty where we acknowledge a right to be forgotten because that would blatantly violate the United States First Amendment.
Dan, hang on a second. Here's your a problem with your assumption.
This isn't even that.
That's right. Pam nailed it. This isn't a right to be forgotten.
This is libel. This is a completely different animal here. It's not the right to be forgotten. It's the right to have correct information out there about me. Right?
But the article says that he's using the right to be forgotten law
Well,
to
then
have it taken down.
there's might be his problem then.
I
It
think
doesn't.
that's the headline. Google fined for not taking down right to be forgotten links worldwide in France.
Yeah, but the rest of the article doesn't talk about right to be forgotten. The headline is wrong.
A French court has convicted Google of failing to comply with a right to be forgotten case after it took down links on its French subsidiary but failed to do so
And
globally.
here's the thing: the right to be forgotten issue, as we've been debating a whole bunch of times, is different than the court decision about right to be forgotten. I don't think this is a right to be forgotten case.
Might not be. Mhm.
If I actually did something and an article was written about it and 10 years later, I want that information removed, well, that's right to be forgotten. I mean, it's over and done with 10 years ago, but I did the thing that got me the article. In this case, supposedly, allegedly, the guy didn't do or didn't, you know, incur the penalty that the article is saying that he did, and so it's an actually bogus story.
Well, going to LaCroix, where they link, it's the first link in the story. This is the Google English translation of the French page, which, as we know, could have no relation at all to what the French is. The French justice forced the first search engine in the world to dereference links. In other words, Google has been convicted of failing to comply with the quote, and they quote it, right to oblivion of its users. I'm assuming that's their, translated to be right to be forgotten. This is the first conviction of its kind in France and Europe. I think that the guy, it's not like, I think this is a classic right to be forgotten case. There's something on the internet that is wrong about the guy, and it's defamatory.
No, that's not the classic right to be forgotten case. The classic right to be forgotten case is exactly what Pam said earlier, which is somebody who did something, and that was reported on years ago, but that is no longer relevant to the public, be removed, or the references to it to be removed.
Was it limited to that, or that's one scenario among several?
It was limited to that. What this is all about is libel, slander, defamation, illegal defamation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is not a standard right to be forgotten case. Do we have any comments on this?
I'm kind of wondering why Google is not towing the line here then. I mean, if the ruling was for links to be removed, and the information is incorrect, then I don't understand why Google's having a problem with it. Well, I do actually understand, because I can't get frickin' posts about me removed from Google Plus that are completely untrue, regardless of how hard I try. So, maybe Google just doesn't care what people say about other people. But it doesn't.
I'm sorry, Pam, finish.
I'm just saying that it just doesn't make sense that Google would kind of put their reputation on the line in this way if the information is incorrect.
Okay, this is correct here. This is from ec.europa.eu. This is the actual fact sheet or on the right to be forgotten ruling. It says, individuals have the right under certain conditions to ask search engines to remove links with personal information about them. This applies where the information is inaccurate, inadequate, irrelevant, or excessive for the purpose of the data processing. The court found in this particular case the interference with a person's right to data protection could not justify merely by the economic interest of the search engine. At the same time, the court explicitly clarified the right to be forgotten is not absolute, but will always need to be balanced against other fundamental rights, such as freedom of expression and of the media. A case-by-case assessment is needed considering the type, blah, 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 blah. So not only is inaccurate a qualifier, it's the first they list. So once again, I am right and Alan is the other thing.
I still don't see why Google is dragging their feet on this.
Sorry, Dan, but you're still wrong, because to quote you quoting the EU, an individual has the right to petition, whereas this was a court order. So this is still not about the right to be forgotten.
Well, don't they petition a court, or do they petition them?
And Dan, that other thing.
We actually don't hate each other.
Well, sometimes, but really it's true.
In May 2014, it says, on the territory of EU rules, even if the physical server of a company processing data is located outside Europe, EU rules apply to search engine operators if they have a branch or a subsidiary in a member state which promotes the selling of advertising space offered by the search engine.
Yeah, but that's still not relevant because that talks about where the server is located, not where the company is doing business. So that just means that Google servers can be located. So that just means that Google.fr can actually be located in the U.S. Meanwhile, I'm actually trying to translate the court ruling that we are actually discussing, and my machine is being a little slow on doing that. So,
Do we all? Okay, let me ask. While you're doing that, let me ask a question. Do we all agree that they do have the legal right to restrict the information to any user in France or potentially the EU, but not outside of the EU? In other words, not to an IP outside of the EU. Would you agree with that? And I'm
I think
speculating.
I agree with that.
I'm speculating on whether it would apply EU wide because I don't know. It may. I just don't know. I don't know how that works because they're sort of in cahoots. Kevin, do you have an opinion, or do you have a clue what we're talking about because you just joined?
Yeah, hello everyone. From what I'm seeing right now, I think that I need to look it up more and look at what the details are more. Because and not just because I just came into the show, but because I think that it needs to have more thought around it in general, because this is now we're really getting into the weeds of what it really means to have a right to be forgotten. For example, what I'm thinking is what it feels like is that they're opening up a door for another search engine that would just completely ignore any of these rulings and then just start broadcasting stuff, kind of like WikiLeaks style. Just like find out anything that's out there that's trying to be forgotten, and then all of a sudden, hey, let's just put this on our front page and we can get a bunch of views based off of that.
Let's say that, Kevin, what if Google had a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia, and they may, or Qatar, and a Saudi court ruled that Google had to remove all links to women who were not covered worldwide?
Yeah, that's where I guess we need to start thinking about it. I mean, Canada opened the door up with this, and now France is dealing with this, saying if you have some local content, you have to make it worldwide. I don't know how a court can give a ruling for a worldwide ruling, and then force that company to do that. I don't, because their jurisdiction doesn't go worldwide. So how can they enforce a ruling worldwide when they don't have jurisdiction worldwide? I mean, to me.
Well, okay, let me argue against myself here, Kevin. What about this? Let's say that let's say that a News Corp publication in France. Let's say CNN had a bureau in France, and CNN ran a story on their website saying that you were an axe murderer. Okay.
Okay.
And let's say that you sued CNN.fr for libel and defamation, and in the court ruling, they said they had to pay you and they had to take down the story because it's false, right? Because you could demonstrably prove that they got the wrong Kevin Marks, and your picture was on the story and it was an accident, okay?
Right.
And you
Okay.
emailed them and called them and they wouldn't acknowledge you, and so you were damaged and you sued and you won. Would CNN France, could the judge order them to remove the provably false story from CNN.com as well? That would seem reasonable, right? So I'm kind of arguing against myself here.
I don't know that it would, because I don't think they have jurisdiction. I think that stuff would still have to stick up, and then I would have to go after CNN.com. I think I would. I would have to because CNN.com is in the U.S. and it's controlled by U.S. courts, and so I'd have to face that.
You'd have to sue in every jurisdiction. If they were, I mean, this is a hypothetical, obviously.
Yeah.
That they were being
No.
stubborn and stupid, right? But which they wouldn't. They would take it down.
No, but that's a tough one, because but I think that's how it would have to go. I think you would have to sue in each jurisdiction, because you can't have a court go beyond its own jurisdiction. You would have to see, for me to even agree with that. I mean, you would have to have like an international court, and then if you get a ruling in that international court, then that would have meanings in multiple countries, whatever countries have signed on to agree to those courts' rulings. And that gets tricky too, because where does that end? But I
Well,
think it would have to just be country by country.
we wouldn't sign on to something like that. Well, maybe.
We
Well,
totally no, we totally would not ever. I mean, could you imagine what would happen if Barack Obama went abroad and he got arrested in another country for some drone strikes that were happening in there at the time? I mean, that would be World War III practically. That wouldn't fly. And but
Yeah, I
to
don't think
me-
Donald Rumsfeld or Dick Cheney are going to be visiting Pakistan anytime soon.
Yeah, I think they've been made aware that maybe they shouldn't travel to certain
should.
places.
Stay in their bunker. And
Well,
I just got a comment.
In their case, the question is, can they leave the U.S. at all, or are they subject to arrest at The Hague? But
That's
we've
yeah.
now so gotten off topic.
Okay, so John Brown says, Dan, your Google Plus Week show is not allowing chat comments on YouTube. I'm not sure what's that referring to, Alan? Is he referring to plus mention comments?
It's probably referring to the fact that we're not allowing chat comments on YouTube.
I don't know what that means. John, can you clarify?
It probably means the comment section on YouTube isn't working, like it hasn't for who knows how long.
Wait, something from Google is broken?
It isn't working. I know. Shocking, isn't it?
Wow.
We do have a couple comments though
Oh,
in the Google Plus stream.
okay. Shoot.
We didn't have last week, so let me try to display this one. From Cy, the Wayback Machine is not searchable. We were talking about the Wayback Machine as part of what needed to be removed from the internet.
Oh my
And-
God, that's so pixelated.
Is it bad?
Oh my God, it looks like Braille.
What? Because I turned my bandwidth way down so I could get good sound from you guys.
It's unreadable.
Here, let me change that back. It's unreadable. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay. You
That's
can just read it to us. Now I see. Yeah, okay. He was commenting on a share. The
Okay.
Wayback Machine is not searchable. You need to know the URL in the past to view it. I don't think Google indexes the Wayback Machine, or if it does, the algorithm down rates it so severely you never see it in the results.
Yeah, that could be right. So, and the right to be the right to be forgotten law is covered in existing treaties. We have an extradition treaty with France since 1966.
96. And
What did I say?
Sai says, are we saying that we need an internet authority?
That's an extradition treaty. That's different.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the right to be forgotten is part of an extradition treaty. If it is, please explain in the comments so we know what you mean.
I guess they're going to haul Larry and Sergey over to Paris to answer for their crimes. Google should just deny access to everything outside of google.fr for IP addresses residing within France. That's my point. I think that they absolutely have a right under the law. I think the law is stupid, but so what? That's my opinion. It doesn't matter. That's the law. And they shouldn't be able to say that they can't show it to me on google.com. That's insane.
Right.
And then his other thing
Well,
is,
but
go ahead, Alan.
the more I read into this, and I'll be honest, I keep trying to find the actual ruling and I can't. Everyone is still talking about it in terms of right to be forgotten and saying that the court's decision was based on the right to be forgotten. The problem is the court's decision also said that it was up to Google to make that decision, not up to somebody else. So I'm totally baffled about this particular ruling still. In as much as I still think the right to be forgotten is kind of silly, this is even sillier. But I still can't find the actual ruling, nor anything about whether the original page was supposed to have been taken down or not. At any rate, I think we've been beating this subject to death.
And just one other thing here. This is Joshua Hughes says, where is it written that people have a right to be forgotten? They don't. They never have. Actually, it's written here at ec.europa.eu. Just Google
That's
right.
exactly what it's written there.
Just write Google EU right to be forgotten, and you'll get to this. This is the official fact sheet from the European Union. Those crazy people. Makes you appreciate the First Amendment very much because it does not exist in other countries. Joshua Hughes, can I go to the library and demand that all record of libelous articles or books be removed from their electronic catalog? I don't know. Maybe in Europe you could. Okay, speaking of Europe, let's go back to Europe. And again, the link, if you're joining us, if you want to see this, it's right here. It's bit.ly/GPW topics. Will take you to this document. All right, the third story, and this is just really nuts. The European Parliament calls for Google's breakup to end ongoing antitrust probe. The European Parliament is expected to call for the unbundling of Europe's search business from the rest of its commercial operations. The move is aimed at reducing the search giant's search and advertising monopoly in the 28-member state bloc, amid concerns spanning more than 3 years over the company's business practices. Not only is this stupid, even for European standards, but I don't see where it would accomplish anything, because their whole beef is with search. So if you took Google Plus and YouTube away from them, you'd still have the gripe about search. That's insane. Am I missing something?
Right.
Haters. That's all I have.
Haters gonna hate.
That honestly, that's what it is. Because this isn't even a monopoly situation. I mean, you can go to another search. It needs to be said over and over and over again. You can always go to a different search engine. It's always available. You know, if you want to send email by a different system, there's actually many good options out there. I mean, they're not cool, but
Why don't people use them?
because Google is better at it.
No, you just said there are other better ones out there.
Oh, well, I see what you're saying.
Don't hold
there
his own
are
words
other
against
better
him.
And the reason why you don't go use something else is because Google has a monopoly on it. Let's be honest here. Google has 90% of the market. People don't go elsewhere.
But
But
that's
it's
not a
not that they
monopoly. That's
can't.
inertia. It's inertia.
Exactly.
That's not a monopoly. That's
Exactly.
people.
That's not the same as saying you have a monopoly.
No, it is a
Exactly.
monopoly. It's not
It is
necessarily an unlawful monopoly. It
No.
is a monopoly.
No,
It
that's
isn't.
not
No.
a monopoly. It's only a monopoly if they have no other option.
People are choosing. It's like iTunes. Okay, technically, if you buy an Apple product, you know they want you to use iTunes. Do you absolutely have to use iTunes? No, there are hacks out there to bypass iTunes, and you can use something else.
Mm-hmm.
But most people use iTunes.
Yep.
It's the same. Google. There are other options out there. People are choosing not to use them. It doesn't. It's not like the cable monopoly.
Right. That's exactly right, Pam.
Or
There
big
are no. It's exactly like the cable monopoly. There are options besides cable TV.
Swear to God, a guy from Cox.
not having it. What I'm
No,
saying is,
we've
if
got
you
this
want-
wonderful thing called broadcast television. And in what percentage of the country are there actually two
I
television
haven't even
providers?
seen a freaking television antenna in decades.
well,
Nobody-
I have to tell you
Every
that
option is there, Dan.
I actually live in a place where I cannot get a broadcast television signal because of the location of the broadcast antenna is actually obstructed in this particular location. So I don't have the option for broadcast television. I have to either have satellite TV, internet TV, or cable. And if I choose cable, the cable available here is Time Warner. Now, I also have the option for FiOS, so I really don't live in a monopoly area, but that's a rarity.
It's
For,
not a rarity. It's not a rarity. Most cable television services are offered by duopolies.
A third of the country has one option for broadband. A third has two. Another third has three or more.
Okay, so 66% more have a duopoly or better. That's not a monopoly. And that's better than Google, which has 90% of the market.
Yeah, but they have 90% of the market because people are choosing it, not because there are not any other options. For example, uh, certain searches, I use Yahoo exclusively because Yahoo doesn't filter porn, and Google does. And, you know, I don't want pictures of cats when I look up certain words.
Don't you
right?
just have to put the word porn in and it shows it to you?
No.
I remember the Saturday Night Live, that weekly news thing they do, weekend update. They said Google announced that people who want to find porn on Google on the internet will have to be very explicit in their search requests. The internet responded, "That won't be a problem." So let's go a couple comments real quick, and then you guys go back. Captain Euro, Google brought this on itself. It's about time that the EU stops pussyfooting. I hope George Cozy's watching and comments. Oh, there you good. You just did. Because I want to get some European stuff in here. And then we have Ron Dennis. It's not the same as a monopoly. You can sign up for Google services, but they are definitely not forced to use Gmail or Inbox. It's not like the choice of an internet provider where you basically decide whether you want it or go without. The big difference, Ron, is this, that anybody watching this program who has the skill could create a search engine this weekend and launch it, and it would be accessible to everybody. That is different from Comcast and all of the companies that actually have to lay physical infrastructure, some sort of pipe, either copper wire or fiber or a water pipe or an electrical cable, what have you. It doesn't make sense for multiple companies to run coax or fiber to your home for the sole purpose of engaging in a price war. And that's the problem. So you end up, they're de facto monopolies. Also, they have very lucrative and attractive franchise agreements with the locality that can prevent others, or if others come in, they have to hit the guy on the hill.
I'm sorry, Ken. I'm sorry.
Last thing, and then hold your rant. The last thing is that also in Virginia, for example, and other states, municipal broadband is banned. So if the town of Front Royal voters voted to issue a long-term bond referendum to lay fiber to everyone, even if they wanted to open the fiber up to any company that wanted to send television or internet or future services that we haven't even imagined yet, they're banned from doing so. So there are de facto monopolies. I think that that's very different from this, where you sort of have a de facto monopoly, but that's because everyone else sucks. Bing is being very aggressive, Alan.
How is that not a I mean, you just said it's a de facto monopoly.
But it's different because it's by choice. If
AT&T became a monopoly by choice.
If one place has the best pizza,
there were competition in AT&T and in the Baby Bells.
If one
AT&T
place
provided a better service, and therefore it became the de facto monopoly.
If one place in your town had the best pizza, and it was clean and good service, and everyone went there, and there were two other places that had shitty pizza and roaches, and everyone went to the one pizza place, are they a de facto monopoly because people choose to go to the pizza place where they won't be puking afterward?
Yes. The issue is, and let's be perfectly clear, I am not saying that that Google is doing anything at all illegal by having 90% of the market. The only thing I am saying is that they are a de facto monopoly. I'm not saying they're an illegal de facto monopoly. I'm not saying they're abusing that position. I'm not saying any of that. But for you guys to just dismiss it by saying, oh, somebody else could come along, that's hogwash.
Look, Microsoft is no freaking joke. I don't know if you've looked at their market cap lately. Their site is not bad. Google's better. People choose to use it. Bing and Google, I mean, they're running negative TV commercials against them. They have this stupid Scroogled campaign. They got these idiots from the pawn shop to do an ad. It's not Google's fault that Bing sucks. It's Microsoft's fault that Bing sucks.
No, Bing doesn't suck.
Well, I mean, how can no one use it?
It's in some ways Bing is very good. If you looked at Bing images, especially when they made their first refresh, they had the design that Google essentially stole. I mean, that was the good idea. That they had a whole page full of really great, bright images, and it was an endless scroll. And so Google had to steal that idea because it was a better idea. I mean, Bing actually has great hotel search. Bing has great airplane search.
Okay, question.
Let's actually get to the topic.
Okay.
Well,
Can we actually get to the topic, which we haven't done for about 9 minutes now?
it's never
But we-
stopped us before. A couple quick comments, and then Alan gets back to the topic. George Cozy to Pinella, is the "don't be evil" thing still alive? It has to be asked. In fact, it should be asked on a regular basis. So we have two pro-EU guys, ironically in Europe. Cybernaut, AT&T owned all the lines back then. It was harder to get phone service without a hard line. Joshua Hughes, it's true. Bing has
That's not-
roaches.
Hang on, that's not correct. AT&T didn't own all the phone lines. There used to be competition.
Cybernaut, I just laughed out loud at Microsoft's. Microsoft is not a joke. People are looking at me now. We've warned you, Cy, about watching our program in public. You'll be angry and laughing for 3 hours. Okay.
So George raised a really good question in his question. Is the "don't be evil" mantra still alive? And if it is, then why the hell did they do evil?
What evil are they alleged to have done?
And what should be done about it? They blatantly stole material from other websites without acknowledgement.
Oh.
That's the core part of this case.
Mistakes were made.
Okay, so how should Google be punished for those mistakes?
I don't know. A fine?
Punished by increasing market share? I don't know.
Well, that's apparently how they were punished.
But this was years ago. They have a right to be forgotten. It's irrelevant to the current Google.
I like that argument. I don't think it'll fly, but I like the argument.
All right. Anything
And
else? Go ahead.
That's the fundamental question here. Google abused its 90% market share. How should they be punished for that abuse? Now, I think breaking them up is moronic because it won't solve the problem. It won't change the 90% market share. Although it does kind of raise the question about how the search company would actually make any money. But that's another story completely. I think what the court is proposing is idiotic, but nobody seems to actually be addressing the issue of Google screwed up. How do you punish them for screwing up?
Okay, great. That's the last word on that, I guess. Everyone be funny so
Bye.
Cy gets kicked out of whatever restaurant or library he's in. Okay, next is Google launches Contributor, a plan to let you pay to avoid ads. For $1 to $3, this is a test thing, right? From $1 to $3, you set your monthly amount. The more you contribute, the more you support the websites you visit. When you visit a particular website, part of your contribution goes to the creators of that site. As a reminder of your support, you'll see a thank you message, often accompanied by a pixel pattern, where you might normally see an ad. So you still see an ad, but it's an ad for Contributor, as opposed to an ad for, whatever. Okay, so this is kind of weird. What do you think?
It's kind of unclear to me where it's unclear that whether they're actually going to show a thank you message all the time for what they're doing. To me, that wouldn't make a ton of sense in some ways. Yeah, you wouldn't see an advertisement for the other services, but you would see an advertisement essentially for Contributor by Google. So it's like ads just for Google.
Isn't anybody who doesn't want ads simply going to install an ad blocker? And they're very good, right?
They're great, but I can see why people would want to not see ads and then still support a website. This would give them a way to do that.
Mashable?
Well,
I don't know.
well, not Mashable directly, but I mean, I'm assuming they're going to open it up to more websites. There's a long list of websites that are going to open themselves up to it, and so I can see for some smaller places that maybe you don't want to see advertisements, but you know,
Is WikiHow one of those content farms, or are they good?
they're close to a content farm, but
I think it's like it's like how to boil an egg, and there's like a 12 slide and new ads on each page. And it's funny how one division, like Matt Cutts, is punishing these guys, and then another division is like making them an early adopter in the trial to get money. That's kind of neat. Interesting.
yeah, WikiHow, I have not found that to be the greatest of sites. Sometimes they'll have some information that's kind of useful, but a lot of times not so great. I mean, the Onion, that would be interesting.
The worst is those sites where they got a slideshow, and the pictures are different sizes. So you not only do you have to click, and they're slow because they're so bloated with ads, and then you get the pop up, and then the third slide is an ad, and then they're not even uniform. Like the right arrow is not in the same place each time, right? Because the pictures are different. It's just, I mean, oh my God, straight out of the 90s.
Yeah, that's a good website to actually block from your Google searches. I've used that feature before.
How do you
That's
do
really
that?
useful. If you search for something, let's say you were searching for I don't know, J-Lo and Beyonce.
Like
Search for
Dan normally does.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen Beyonce live, and she's an
Something.
excellent singer, and she's got some serious booty.
But
I'm just
if you
saying.
see a low-quality website in those results, below each of those choices, there's an option to block that website.
Really?
And if you click on that, then you'll be able to not see any more information when you search, and you'll start developing a list. Yeah, absolutely.
So I
I'm
could
looking at
block
it right now.
GeorgeCozy.com because it's so full of spam and questionable content. I'm just kidding, George. We adore George. Okay, so contributors. So we got a couple comments on that. John Brown, great. Thank you, spam instead of the ad. Sai, shut up and take my money. And then Captain Euro, can't you just donate money to your favorite websites? But then Google wouldn't get a piece.
Right. That'd be the real problem with that.
Not that that's a motivation for Google.
Sure, Google would get a piece. How the hell do you think you're going to be doing the donation? Via Google Wallet, you idiots!
But do you mean Google Wallet or Google
That wasn't what I was saying,
or
Alan. I
Google
said
Wallet?
it. If you
Couldn't
just,
do the donation with Google Wallet because Google Wallet doesn't accept Google Wallet.
And Google Wallet doesn't talk to Google Wallet.
Right.
Google Wallet does do donations. It does. It actually has that feature.
Yeah, but it probably won't work with all this part of the company because they work in a different building.
okay,
Everybody
next.
works in a different building. You know how many freaking buildings they have?
I'm just saying this is their answer for everything. Google Wallet, you can't use Google Wallet to pay for Google Shopping.
You can barely.
What
Google
is that true? That's a fail.
True?
You serious? No shit.
Yeah, you can't use Google Wallet to pay for Google Shopping Express. You can't. It won't take the card.
What a joke. All right, next
Standing
up.
by
Huh?
They fixed that lunacy.
They did fix it?
No. I say I'm standing by this position of mine until they fix that lunacy.
It's a shame Cadeas is not here because he would really get riled up. Little wisps of smoke. Okay, so I stole that line from MASH from the 70s. I'm that old. Okay, next up is Google to test fly balloons, which transmit internet over Australia. This is part of Project Loon in the early stages. The company is to team up with Telstra to fly 20 balloons over western Queensland in a project designed to help connect remote regions of the world. The balloons carry antennae that can, I don't know what the plural is correctly, if it's not on an insect, that can beam 4G-like signals to homes and phones 20 kilometers below. I'm not sure how many miles that is, but I imagine it's a few. And so that's interesting. I love Alan's little op-ed comments there. Okay, so this is eventually they want to have a ring of balloons traveling over the world in whatever area, I guess, above the atmosphere, so like hurricanes and stuff won't bother them. I don't know if they just fall down when they run out, or if they can control them in any way, or what. Alan, what's the deal here?
Have you read up anything on Project Loon?
I mean, like a year and a half ago, that's like an eternity. I'm the guy who watches The West Wing every year, and it's brand new.
And you're not the only guy who does that, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't take my meds.
And you're not married. Why?
I'm actually a sought after single man in my parts. So anyway,
Yeah. All right. I'm not gonna say anything.
how much longer till we're not talking about Dan?
It's got to be too long.
Side notes: Google Shopping Express. Oh my God. Oops.
Sai is right.
Shopping Express accepts PayPal. I like PayPal. Cadeas hates PayPal.
I use PayPal because, Google Shopping accepts it. So
All right. Anyway, all right. So nobody gives a damn about the loon.
no, actually, I care about the balloons.
Yeah, I think I care. I think I speak for everyone when I say we care. It's just we don't see how it's gonna work out. I think we're all waiting for the first test.
You don't.
Is-
What do you mean waiting for the first test?
Well, I mean,
This isn't even the first test. This is
No,
a follow-on to a follow-on to a follow-on test.
but I mean,
I think they're making it work.
Is this designed to bring internet to places like North Korea, or North Korea could just shoot them down, right? This is more for like really poverty-stricken rural areas where there's no infrastructure, right?
North Korea can't even shoot them down. Well, actually, I guess North Korea could, because in theory they've got rockets, but this is flying in the stratosphere. These are upper atmosphere things.
Yeah, they're not easily going to shoot them down, and that would draw some attention. So, I think this addresses the need to put to make internet accessible in remote regions of the world where infrastructure is too expensive to lay in the ground, but you still have population that's widely dispersed. So to me, Australia's a good example. They have population in many places in that continent that are not in the cities that have, the ability to dig up the streets and put cable down or fiber.
One
And
comment
don't-
on from Joshua Hughes. This is on YouTube. This is from a previous story. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights permits restrictions on freedom of speech when necessary to protect the reputation or rights of others. The U.S. does not have such a provision. In fact, the freedom of speech provision in our Constitution, which was the very first amendment to our Constitution, exists mainly to protect unpopular speech, because things like I love my mom and apple pie and the government's doing a great job don't need protection. Okay.
We don't have slander laws. We don't have laws against slander and libel.
You can take civil action, absolutely, but it's not a crime. Also, there's no prior censorship allowed. In other words, if I want to print something,
In this case, it is neither criminal nor prior action. Google is being fined. They're not being arrested. And it happened after the fact, not before the fact.
okay. There we go. The voice of authority speaks. All right, next is
And that makes me right and Dan that other thing still.
that's my line. It's copyrighted. You can't use that line against me.
Sue me.
Sue me.
Which pick a jurisdiction, buddy.
You got to sue in the French courts because clearly you'll have an advantage there.
Most of my jokes are so bad that the right to be forgotten applies.
They're granted the right to be forgotten by all courts of jurisdiction.
Yes, it's the one thing all countries agree on, even the even
Hey, George
ISIS.
Cozy has a comment.
All right, so
George
yeah.
has a comment. It's 3:50 a.m. I'm making escarole white bean soup and I'm listening to you lot laugh out loud. What the heck has gone wrong with my life?
Maybe there's some wine involved.
Well, good for you, George. That's all I
Now,
can
Michael,
say.
you're the expert. You're the culinary guru as far as pairing and matching. What for escarole white bean soup? What the hell is escarole?
Escarole is a green, a kind of a bitter green, delicious, but has very tight, curly leaves.
Oh my God. He's like Wikipedia with glasses. So, what's the best wine for escarole white bean
Well,
soup?
that's the way I know that soup. It's a Tuscan soup, so I would think a nice Italian wine would be good with it. But I'm sure everybody's got their own idea. George is in France, though. I think,
Perhaps
right?
a nice Chianti.
No. He's in the Netherlands, and he's going to have beer with it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right, but that's not classic.
Well, I would think.
Of course, he's kibitzed with Pam about what the right beer is to have.
No.
So he should have a nice light beer with his white. Is it like wine? White wine with.
Yeah,
Like-
you can think of it, Dan, that the white beans are like fava beans, and he can have a nice Chianti.
Exactly. And is this sort of like I'm thinking Italian wedding soup, sort of? All right. Next up is I meant like except with a kick because anyway. I don't know who's more juiced, Pam or Mike.
Oh my God.
All right, so next up is we are going to be sued. Chairman Tom Wheeler of the FCC speaks on net neutrality. He says he hasn't talked to President Obama since the president called for utility rules. We are going to be sued, he said in a Q&A after the FCC's monthly meeting. That's the history. Every time in this whole discussion, anytime the commission is moved to do something, one of the big dogs has gone to sue. We don't want to ignore history. We want to come out with good rules that accomplish what we need to accomplish: an open internet, no blocking, no throttling, no fast lanes, no discrimination. That sounds exactly like what the president called for. My comment there. And we want those rules to be in place after a court decision. So we want to be sure that we're thoughtful in the way in which we structure them, and we're thoughtful in the way we present what will ultimately be presented to a court. Any predictions? Because whether they'll be ruled a common carrier, internet bandwidth providers, I think that I'm generally opposed to burdensome government regulation, but I don't think that's what the case is here. I think this is de facto monopolies that are providing really bad quality internet, and
have no incentive to change.
but I don't know if there's much of a demand for change. And someone was telling me that one of the things with fiber is that they're real fast up and down, but if they're going to a regular site on a regular server, there's not a dramatic increase in speed.
Oh my! Did you just say?
Oh, you
that
got
A,
to see him for
de
the
facto
full
monopoly,
effect.
but B, there isn't much demand for change. And how is that different from Google?
It's frustrating. I don't know if he's smoking a stogie or what he's doing. Keeps turning his camera off. He's eating, I think. All right, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm trying not to spout a string of expletives at you.
Come on, Alan. That's the fun part of the show. Don't take that away from me.
All right, so any thoughts on what they're going to do? Or I think they're going to come out with some. Well, it's basically what the president asked for. Is exactly articulated, almost in the same order.
Yeah.
And he said he hasn't spoken to him since he called for it. Right? He didn't say he didn't. They didn't
Right.
coordinate
They
prior
had a
to.
White House before that.
Right. So there.
It's sounding like it's just going to go whatever ruling they're put out. It's probably just going to go straight to the Supreme Court, essentially.
Yeah. So anyway, we're for net neutrality. I've still got to post that thing I referenced last week, my letter to my dad, or email to him.
Oh
And
yeah, that was useful.
I also got a post. My mom called me up. She's 76. She's got Android. She wants to upgrade her phone. She was going to get the Droid Turbo, but someone said that she should get the Moto X. She's on Verizon. I told her that I would post and ask for advice, so look for that shortly. Okay, the FTC shuts down the massive PC cleaner scam. Oops. Uh, PC Cleaner Pro appears to run a system scan that invariably detects a host of malicious or otherwise dangerous files and programs, including malware and system errors. In many instances, PC Cleaner Pro's initial scan identifies thousands of purported problems on a single computer. Indeed, the scan is designed to falsely identify problems on consumers' computers, exaggerate minor issues, and otherwise deceive consumers into thinking that their computers are significantly compromised. In addition, the free scan falsely claims that many innocuous files, such as temporary files, web browser cookies, and Windows default settings, are problematic. This is quoting from in the last word, paraphrasing from the Federal Trade Commission release. So, my God, why does it take them so long? And how do these guys get away with this for so long? I've seen that. Urgent warning,
I've seen
Yeah.
a lot less of it recently. I mean, I use ad blocker, and so I see a lot less of that
You probably don't
than I
frequent porn.
used to.
That's
Yeah, just in general, I haven't seen a lot of those releases, but I'm glad they're putting out this ruling um, to actually be effective against it.
it's amazing how many of these scams exist. Okay. Anybody else want to talk about that? It's a good thing.
I'm afraid I don't know anything.
Okay. All right. Next up, I saw this. I first learned of this from Jeff Jarvis, the journalism professor at CNU, CUNY, and co-host of This Week in Google on Leo Laporte's wonderful Twit network. So he posted the response. So I looked for it, and what happened is there was a story on ABC's Good Morning America with Brian Ross, who's sort of an investigative reporter, and this was interviewing the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So, a couple quotes I got here. The chairman of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, Elliot Kay, says the online ad site Craigslist is morally irresponsible for its failure to do what other sites do to block the sale of defective products under government recall. They do not and will not do it to date, said Kay, despite repeated requests from the commission officials to set up the same filters used by Amazon and eBay to prevent recalled items from being posted. And in a nutshell, and then I'm going to read the response. In a nutshell, he said that Amazon and eBay do a good job of filtering for items that have been recalled. Like, say, we're thinking they showed a cabinet, a wooden cabinet that could accidentally lock and your kid could be trapped inside. They showed a booster seat that was dangerous. I think a stroller that could cause a kid's finger to be cut off or sliced or something like that. And so people are selling these items. Now, apparently Amazon and eBay, based on the testing that ABC did, Amazon immediately, they took one specific example. It was called the something booster seat. And they said that Amazon immediately blocked the listing, that eBay allowed the listing, but it was taken down within a day, and that Craigslist was the least efficient, and that the items were listed for quite some time. So that's their beef. In the thing, they asked Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist, to answer questions. He declined to be interviewed. The CEO, Jim, I forget his last name, put out a statement. Craig, and in full disclosure here, I like Craig. He has been on this program before. I invited him to appear just briefly tonight, either via phone or to come in the hangout, either way, and respond, just because he got beat up pretty good in this thing. He has not responded. But it was just a couple hours ago, so I'm not saying he's declined to comment. I'm saying he may have not even gotten the email.
Right.
It's a good reason to not name a business after yourself, because every time there's one of these things, it's the Craigslist killer or the Craigslist
Well,
burglar.
and the president made the point, the CEO made the point that this founder hasn't been an active part of managing this operation, this business for years.
That said, I don't think it's out of bounds if he owns it, even if he's not managing it.
No, I don't agree.
You don't think if Rupert Murdoch plays no active role in running some minor newspaper in Yugoslavia, but News Corp owns it and he's the CEO, right? You don't think it's fair game if you run into Rupert to say, "Hey, what do you think about this scandal involving this publication?"
Well, it's a little bit different because
You can delegate authority. Can you delegate responsibility if you're the owner?
if you have no control, which is so the definition of management and ownership are different from each other, absolutely different from each other.
You said
And
you
so-
have no control. He doesn't have control, or he chooses not to exercise the control that he could if he chose. Right? He still owns it.
Well, okay. Yeah, but owning is not the same as being responsible for management. If I own shares in IBM Corporation, I have nothing at all to say about what they do as a corporation.
So
Okay.
you do.
Now it's
Of course you do, Michael. What
I'm sorry.
the fuck do you think a shareholders meeting is?
I'm sorry.
If Fursten,
I have
okay,
the extent of my.
if Furstenberg,
You're right, Alan. But
if Furstenberg Home Insulation is a subsidiary of Prisoner Corp, and Alan, it's in Idaho, and Alan doesn't live in Idaho, and he owns the company, or a majority of it, and it's a privately held corporation. I don't know what percentage of Craigslist is owned by Craig, but if that company was cheating people or doing something bad, and that's not the allegation here, it's just they're sloppy with their code to prevent these sorts of things, and sometimes people won't put the right name in or whatever, but I encourage you to read the response and the ABC report for yourselves before opining. But in general, I would say if Alan owns it, he does control it. He's delegating authority, but you're not delegating responsibility if you own it. If Craig has the ability to go in and clean house and fire everybody, which he likely does, then how can he not be ultimately responsible for the decisions made by the team that he has authorized to run the company?
if it went the way it was described in the article, the active managers of the company solicited the opportunity to respond and give the facts. And they chose not to ask those people the questions. They chose instead to go to the named guy, the guy named Craig for Craigslist, who doesn't know what's going on, or could at least very likely doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't been an active part of management for years. I choose to suggest that the journalists involved were only looking for the sensational. They weren't looking for the actual facts because they didn't go to the people that could have provided the real facts.
Well, we don't know that. They did read from the statement that they gave them verbatim. But they also ambushed Craig outside of his house. I think he was.
And they didn't accept the phone calls and email requests for interviews that those people put out, according to what I read.
Go ahead, Pam.
Didn't Craigslist take action against soliciting ads?
Yes, they did. They got rid of the section.
So that proves that they have the ability, or the precedence has been set that they can filter results.
They do, and they specifically say, and ABC acknowledges that they do, in fact, ban the sale on Craigslist in the classified section of any recalled products.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the issue is Amazon and eBay have a more advanced, more effective filtering system. Amazon's is instant, eBay's is moderated, so it's not instant. Amazon's likely is also moderated if the algorithm filtering process doesn't immediately work, and Craigslist was the least effective of the three. Go ahead,
Well,
Pam, and then I'll read from the
a,
CEO
lo-
of
a lot
Craigslist.
of a lot of people who put ads in there might not necessarily put the actual model number and the, you know, they're going Graco stroller for sale. You know what I mean? That's not enough information for a filter
It
to.
appears that ABC actually listed and named it on Amazon, eBay, and this particular, it was a booster seat. It appears that they listed it and referred to it by name, because no filter, if you lie about what the product name is going to catch it, right? I mean, I doubt you're going to find a moderator who's going to be able to, from a visual image, if there is a visual image, be able to determine every single recalled product. And if you've ever gone to the recalled list, it's huge. Every day it grows by a lot. But here's the letter from Jim Buckmaster, who is the CEO of Craigslist. I saw your ABC interview, and let me say first, we agree 100% on the product recall process. It's broken. You're right. I lamented to ABC for a typical recall. 95% of the recalled items are still in the hands of consumers 5 years now after the recall notice. This is to the Consumer Product Safety Commission chairman. This is not to ABC. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, and we link to this and to the ABC story. You rightly lamented to ABC that for a typical recall, 94%, I read that, sorry, imagine our dismay when you and ABC came out shooting at Craigslist. Last we knew from your representatives earlier this year, we were taking all appropriate steps to reduce the number of free classified ads for recall items by Craigslist users. Contrary to an assertion you made on ABC, we do not earn any revenue from these free classifieds, and it seems you may have been misinformed as to both our business model and what is involved in moderating free user classifieds as opposed to the online retailers to whom you compared us. I don't know if that's fair, because that's true that they don't charge for the classifieds, but they do charge for the employment classifieds in certain markets. And the free classifieds are the main draw that causes people to use the site, which makes the employment paid classifieds attractive. So I'm not sure if that's a fair statement. I invite you to sit, and I'll see if Jim wants to come on, because Craig either chose not to or didn't respond. I invite you to sit down with me here in San Francisco to discuss how we can further assist. And then he goes on for the last part. Finally, Craig Newmark has been the victim of completely undeserved criticism by you and ABC, despite our informing ABC weeks before they ambushed him that he has not been involved with managing Craigslist for over a decade and is not a spokesman for the business he founded. This is commonplace at internet companies. Craig is a dedicated philanthropist and was unjustly defamed by Recall Roulette. I look forward to meeting you. From Jim Buckmaster. I still think it's not out of bounds to want to talk to the guy who owns the company. I think you can delegate authority to Jim Buckmaster, and he can delegate to his underlings. But if Craig, and I don't know for sure, if he owns controlling interest, then I think he's ultimately responsible for the actions of his staff, or in this case, inaction. That's my view. And I like Craig, and I invite him on the program. I'm just saying, I think it kind of sucked, but I don't think it was completely out of bounds what they did. Anybody else want to comment on this?
I don't know that I agree that it's the best idea to approach him. You're just not going to get valid, I don't think you're just going to. I just don't think you're going to get useful answers as a journalist.
That's exactly my point. They didn't care to get useful answers. They cared to get sensational answers. The people that had the facts, they didn't go interview.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
See, okay, but we don't know that. I mean, I think they quoted Jim, and they got a statement that they accurately quoted from part of it in the ABC piece. And I would encourage people to watch the ABC report. It's like four minutes or whatever, and then read the response. I think they said, I would have done the same thing, frankly, if there was a guy who owned the company, and if I said, I want to talk to you about this, in addition to talking to the CEO and getting their statement, I want to get the guy on camera. If he refused, I might go to his house and when he's walking his dog, although I don't really do ambush stuff, but we have, and I don't like doing it, but sometimes that's what you got to do. Like I said, you can delegate authority, you cannot delegate responsibility. If you own a company, you cannot say, and you've been told about the issue and they want comment, they have a right to ask. He has a right to refuse to comment. Frankly, I think it would have gone better, and then I'll go to Michael. I think it would have gone better if he had said, "I'll be honest with you. I've been, I'm not actively involved in it. I'm a philanthropist. I really, all I know is that they have done a good job. I'll try to find it out, the information, have the appropriate people get to you. But certainly, we don't want to be in the business of selling potentially dangerous recalled products." That's what he should have said, right? And he does, public appearances and speeches and stuff.
Fair
But
enough.
for whatever reason, he just chose not to say anything, which probably did not go well, because on the piece the whole time at the bottom it says Craigslist founder dodges questions. That
Yeah.
was the subheader right under the video player the whole time. So that was just
So, Dan, you're right on that point that he had a better answer he could have offered, and the one you gave was pretty good. So it could have been a better way for a better outcome. But I
it's just a
stand by.
paragraph. It's just a paragraph, Michael. I mean, and it's the same one they told me when we had him on the show. They said he's not the actively involved in it. It's exact same verbatim paragraph from 2 years ago. So I'm
Right.
sure he could memorize a paragraph, right? If he coded Craigslist or hired a kid to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I like him, and I invited him on, and he's welcome to come on anytime, as is Jim Buckmaster, if they, or not. But
But I stand by the point that in the articles I read, it said that I can't name the executives for you that offered, reached out to the journalists to try to make contact, and they never were able to get return phone calls or emails when they were offering the information to the questions that were being asked. Instead of getting it from the people who had the answers, they chased down this guy who they clearly could have known was no longer part of the operation every day. They didn't choose to go to the people that could answer the questions. They chose to go to the guy that could make a sensational headline.
they know that Craigslist
It's fine to
claims.
say that he owns it, he's responsible. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is the journalist chose to chase the guy that would make a sensational headline, not the guy who they very smartly could have known had the answers to the questions they wanted to ask.
Well, we don't know that they did. You're assuming that they didn't, but
No, I'm saying that the articles we read, which is all we have as information, said those executives offered themselves up for interviews and they never heard back.
okay. I think my advice to Craig, he needs to get a card like the Miranda rights card for the cops. The card needs to say, so anytime he gets ambushed, he whips the card out and he says, "My name is Craig Newmark. I have not been involved with managing Craigslist for over a decade. I am not a spokesperson for the business he founded. And this is not unusual for internet companies. And I'm just trying to walk my freaking dog. Can you get this camera out of my face?" That's what he needs. A little card.
Have pre-printed that
He
says
could have
that.
at Vista. They're free.
Yeah, right.
He
For
could get
200
several made for a couple hundred, 250 cards or something. You could just
Yeah.
keep them in every shirt he has, and just whip them out.
Good idea.
So there. All right, that happened. Anyway, it's an interesting report, but we can agree to disagree. Not the
Do
first
we
time.
disagree? I don't know if we disagreed. Maybe we did.
I'm not sure either. Honda and Toyota are betting the time has come for fuel cells. Likely not. It's
Wow, they're right on the cutting edge of that topic.
huh?
They're right on the cutting edge with that topic. They think it's almost time.
Well, we shall see. I mean, 20
For
years
fuel-
ago, I read some Saudi guy in one of the princes or the oil expert guy said that solar and everything, but the electric, but the real threat to the Saudi kingdom was from hydrogen fuel cells. So here's the lead. It's at this point that the lack of any significant hydrogen infrastructure rears its head to spoil the party. Fuel cell vehicles are indeed tantalizing, polluting only water, but hydrogen is difficult to store compared to hydrocarbons that don't need pressure or extreme cold to remain liquid. For more than a decade, hydrogen-powered cars have been tested in small numbers on the roads of California, but to date there are only 9 hydrogen filling stations open in the state, mostly located in Los Angeles. Of course, that could be quickly cured. We saw what Elon Musk did with his recharging stations across the country, if not nationwide. And I swear to God, I can't get the image of the Hindenburg. Every time I think of driving a hydrogen car, I can't get that image.
Uh,
Oh, the humanity.
Yeah, well,
That's not a good ad for hydrogen vehicles. Although these cars are pretty impressive looking. What do you guys think? Are we going to be driving little hydrogen missiles around instead of? What do you think?
I think we have hit a good level with electric cars. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about hydrogen fuel cells themselves, but it seems like it's the public has been more accepting of fuel stations for electric cars over a new station for hydrogen fuel cell cars. I mean,
This particular car uses the hydrogen to charge batteries, so technically it is an electric car. In fact, it can power
Hmm.
your house for a period of time in a disaster. So it's a little different than the just using it straight for combustion. Excuse me. I was eating my turkey sandwich. So and as far as storing hydrogen, the pressure required is he's right, but the pressure creates the liquid hydrogen. You know what I mean? It's stored under pressure and it cools down because of that. It's not doesn't require refrigeration, so to speak. It actually gets cold and gives off frost or whatever. You know what I mean?
okay.
Like any other gas.
Is that how the Prius works, Pam? Is it? It starts out electric, then the engine kicks on. Is the engine actually propelling the vehicle, or is the engine charging the batteries? I'm not sure if it's similar
Prius-
to what you're saying for
In,
hydrogen.
in the Prius, it's both actually.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's neat how I guess when you brake, press the brakes down, they use that friction to charge the batteries as well.
Correct.
So you get better mileage returning from Massanutten Ski Resort than driving too.
Although I have to say, Pam, your description of liquid hydrogen clearly identifies you as a PUV nerd.
As a what?
PUV nerd.
What is
PV
that?
equals nRT.
Ah,
Never
Oh,
mind. It's a chemistry joke.
gotcha.
Nerd. I've never heard it wordified that way.
Okay.
I do know PV equals nRT though.
All right. So we've obviously lost complete control of the program here.
Well, it's gotten so interesting. The geeks have gone geeky tonight.
That is what makes you think we lost complete control of the program?
I'm being humorous in my non-humorous way. I was being humorous.
He could have called me a pervert.
Well, he might have called you a pervert. It's unclear that perhaps that's exactly what he did.
You know the old saying, "There's with friends like these." All right.
At this
So
point, Dan is Moses leading us through the wilderness. We're at like year 38. Like, where are we going again? What's going on?
And we're all arguing about how life was better before we started getting.
okay. So a couple comments here. Oh, Kevin did. Brad says Kevin was great on Tech Webcast. Good for you,
Yeah,
Kevin.
I was
Did
there.
you have fun?
I was there earlier on Tech Webcast tonight. I was going to mention it in my Google Plus week. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Couldn't
Really
you just listen to
interesting.
them talk all day? Those crazy accents.
It was definitely really nice.
And they're all
I'll-
drunk the entire time. No, I'm just kidding. It's like 1:00 over there tomorrow. It's some crazy. I don't know what the hell they got going on in Australia. Okay, so a couple comments here. Let me see where to begin here. Oh wow. Okay, on the beer. He said the right beer is the one you have in the fridge. George Cozy for his bean concoction. Si's not a wine guy. He wants to know what beer would work. And
Go with his escarole beans.
absolutely. What are the 7 words we can't say on Google Plus Week? I don't know. We've said most. Travis has Blue Moon in the fridge. John Brown, it's a fine line between PC Cleaner and the major virus protection software vendors. There is a lot of exaggeration going on with the leading vendors. This will be like whack-a-mole. The players will declare bankruptcy, start a new company, and keep fleecing the ignorant. That's a good point. Alan says, apparently Google is a market-dominating corporate monopoly. Angelocracy says, whatever government laws are passed, I bet 10 years from now, America will still be behind the rest of the world when it comes to internet speed. Cy, I think we should talk with Gary Google and get him to take his take on all this European stuff. To produce hydrogen, you need plenty of pollution, Joshua says. Difficult to store. That is code for the Hindenburg. Travis, go ahead, Alan.
Create hydrogen, you need plenty of pollution.
Yeah, I don't know what that meant. Joshua, you got to clarify that statement. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Travis says, I talked to a guy who had a Tesla, and he said he got 750 miles for a tank of gas.
You mean Prius? Because Tesla doesn't have gas. Unless it eats my pizza.
Right.
Travis,
So I don't know what that means.
Travis notes PV equals NRT. Thanks.
Now
Now I completely understand. To Alan, I just blew beer with that. You think that's where we went off the rails? Comment. Sorry about that. Now we owe you a new shirt. Everyone should buy a Tesla. Everyone with 80 grand.
If I remember my chemistry right, PV equals NRT. I'm going to take a leap here. Is it Bernoulli's law? I think so.
You learned your elements? I never learned my elements, but the guy was like really nice and gave me like a C.
I think I learned that, but I can't remember if I've got the right law. Bernoulli. I think so. PV equals NRT. I got to look it up now. I'll be back.
Next up, oh my God, he's going to look that up. Next up is Facebook is testing a Facebook at work thing.
I believe Bernoulli's
It's the
principle has-
ideal gas law.
Thank you, Pam. Bernoulli's principle talks about flow of liquid.
Excellent.
Well, I was wrong. In other words, I was the other thing.
Facebook is testing Facebook at work. The company's new enterprise-focused product will be similar to the functionality of its current site with a news feed, groups, and messaging capability. However, it will also include collaborative tools for work on shared documents. Facebook at Work will be entirely separate from personal accounts with no information from a user's social profile appearing on his or her professional page and vice versa. I think this is very smart. Similar, how does the Google Plus with apps work? Is it similar to this? Have you ever tried it, Kevin?
Well, except for, the total, utter lack of integration with Google+, yeah, it works exactly like this.
But apparently this is what Facebook uses. For their, for Mark and Company. What were you going to say, Kevin?
No, I was just gonna say it feels like a weird fit. I'm not saying that it couldn't work. I'm not saying it's even a bad idea. But when I'm thinking of the branding issue, when you're trying to sell it initially to people, when they think of Facebook, they think of talking to friends and family initially. They don't really think of it as something that you would want to have at work. And it feels like Facebook, unlike Google, is more like a one-trick pony. I'm still not saying that that's really true, but that's the way it feels. And so it feels like it would be a hard sell. I mean, it feels like almost like the Facebook phone. Almost, where
that was a fail.
you can have a Facebook, front end for your phone. It can work, but it feels like with the phone, it felt like all you were doing was Facebook on it, and it feels like this service, Facebook at Work. It feels like just having Facebook at work, which people don't really want. They want friends and family stuff. They don't want to mix up any kind of idea of having Facebook and then putting any kind of work stuff on there. So I think it's more of a branding issue than anything else. I think it's a PR issue. I mean, there's functionality too, because Google has a lot more functionality, but there's that. But I think it's a branding issue more than anything else. It's going to be a hard sell.
I don't
terms
think
of-
so. I think it makes sense because everyone knows how to use it. Everyone uses it. We all use it. I don't like it, but I have to use it. And so if I'm hiring someone, I can teach them how to use Google Apps. I can teach them how to use Google Plus because they don't use it. Or I can show them we have this other thing that you already know, like the back of your hand.
Really, Dan? So you think everybody knows how to edit Facebook notes?
I don't think people know Facebook that well. I mean, they know how to read their stream.
I think the learning curve will be less than it would be for Google Plus or some proprietary thing. Like Salesforce, my God, that you need a degree. As far as setting it
You
up.
really think? Whoa! You just equated Salesforce and Facebook friending?
He did. That's exactly what he did.
Obviously, a customer, a CRM is not internal.
I mean, that
It's,
also-
this would be like a subset of that.
also those words that you just used makes it feel different in terms of work too. I mean, you friend people on Facebook. Do I really want to friend people at work? Some people maybe.
Well, you don't just friend people on Facebook. You also give them a thumbs up like. Because remember, friending and liking are the same thing, depending on what
Or
you're
a-
on who you're doing it to.
Sometimes
I mean, I
you-
agree with you. I think Facebook has a hard marketing road to go, but I think the concept is good. Facebook also has a lot of technical issues to resolve. Like, the only thing you can do is collaborate on a text document, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, the actual tools that are available, they haven't been developed fully yet. I mean, and the ones that are there, I don't think they're as good as some of the other offerings out there, and so they need to build up more functionality.
It sounds to
I-
me like what this is, Alan, is like if let's say everyone follows Zuckerberg, instead of emailing out something or pinning something to the bulletin board, he posts it, says, hey, we're going to do whatever, or this new thing, or I'm really excited about this new project, or so-and-so did a great job. And then everyone can comment instead of like replying to all. And those who choose to want to read the comments can, and they're not going to have stuff in their inbox. It's mainly like a collaborative communication tool with some collaborative things
Well,
for it. I think that could be
hang on,
useful.
Dan,
Yes.
do you know what a collaborative tool is?
Yes, because some of my staff is in North Carolina, some is in Virginia, in different parts.
Okay, collaborative tools are not you make a post and then you comment underneath it. Collaborative tools are you're actually writing on the same document.
Don't get me in a typo. Don't send me to the Supreme Court.
No, but I'll take you to
I
court
think I
in France,
corrected
damn
that. A communications tool and collaborative tools. I think I
Okay.
appended my remarks toward the end.
Right. So the point here isn't that you're going to be able to make posts and comment on those. That's a big whoop. Who the freak cares? It's that you've got this collaboration using Facebook's authentication.
I think the communications thing should
Um,
not be understated, and I think that's important. And the idea that you can do it in a subset of Facebook, that it's only accessible internally, similar to the way you can turn on Google Plus functionality. You can, and Michael can correct me if I'm wrong here, that is only accessible to users within your Google Apps domain. So you can have like a mini Google Plus that only applies to prisoner.com.
You can. The major difference, though, is in addition, you've got this other thing called Google Apps with Google Drive.
Right.
So you've got the docs, the sheets, the presentations, the Hangouts, the live chat, all of this stuff at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, I think
And
that's their biggest
That's not
problem.
the
Go ahead.
side of it.
Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Sorry, Kevin, excuse me. That's not the same as the social network side of things. I think it'll be difficult for Facebook because they don't have the distinct presence of collaborative documents as distinctly separate from their or different from their social networking interface.
I think you have that backwards, Michael. I think it's more that they don't have these tools in their social networking interface, so that it's not
Right.
intuitively obvious that you can do that.
Oh, so you're saying they do have them? I'm not aware of them.
Apparently they do. I mean, they use them internally, though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it sounds like they have a collaborative document editor.
Okay. But it's not available to the
Not
public
one.
today.
Exactly.
Right. It's cool, and I mean, I'm sure it works in their small group, but they're behind because they haven't put it out, for millions and millions and millions of people to use. I mean, there's nothing that's ever going to beat just having, a beta test of, millions and millions and millions of people. Just using it over and over and just hammering the company with, let's fix this, let's fix this, let's fix this.
Yeah, but
And,
they stage it. They go from alpha to early beta and then invite
Yeah,
only, just like Google Plus did.
They do, but that product is now out there now. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Google has docs now that work really well. They collaborate well now, and Facebook is, there and they can get better, but they're not at the Google Docs, level.
They're
just
definitely behind in that regard. If they're
Yeah.
starting now, they're really behind.
Yeah,
The
I'm
thing
not
is,
saying.
unlike Google Docs, unlike Google Plus, every one of their employees knows how to use Facebook. So
They
there's
know how
no
to-
learning curve. There's minimal learning curve. They may don't know all the details like editing a note, or
They're
maybe they've
less-
never been in a group.
Dan, that's not the same. That's not the same as saying there's no learning curve. There's a lower barrier to acceptance from the employee pool, but that doesn't mean there's no learning curve. And the people that would make the decision to do this will see what the real learning curve is. They will investigate it and they'll see the real learning curve. It's not trivial to get people to learn a brand new collaborative tool.
You guys parse. You lay in wait to
They're
pounce
really-
when I make an error in speech. You like sitting at the English teacher's table at lunch when I was a teacher. One time I said, I'm going to lay down for a nap, and the librarian stood up and
Right.
screamed at me, "Chickens lay, Mr. McDermott. People lie." And I was like, oh my God. But I never made the mistake again.
I'm going to use that again in a future Google Plus week.
Chickens lay, Mr. McDermott. People lie. Next
Dan,
up,
you're gonna be hung out on a rope.
I'm going to be hanged.
Exactly.
All right, so next is okay. So jokes only Google Plus panelists and viewers would get. Fitbit data is now being used in the courtroom. A law firm in Calgary is working on the first known personal injury case that will use active activity data from a Fitbit to help show the effects of an accident on their client. This is like a wearable that tracks how much you walk and stuff like that. Now they're not actually using. She was injured some time ago before she used Fitbit. So what they're doing is they're actually using her performance data now and comparing it to the population at large as a way to show that there's diminished ability. But this is interesting. I'm thinking in terms of someone claiming that they were injured and unable to getting disability, 50% disability, and then they find out that they're wearing a Fitbit, and the company that is paying for that or paying higher insurance as a result of that, or the government agency administering it, would subpoena their Fitbit data or whatever, their Android Wear device or whatever, and use that in action against them to demonstrate fraud. So is this just obvious, makes sense, or is this a new thing that is interesting? I need that sound effect, like on Jeopardy. The do do, or you know what I mean? When you're waiting, just to fill the gap. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get some sort of time, like the TikTok sound. Does anyone care about this story?
I care about this story. I'm wondering what the situation is going to be if that information can be used against people too.
If you're curious what it looks like to see Kevin speaking and reading at the same time, say something. Kevin.
Hello, this is me reading something at the same time I'm talking. I think I did something weird there.
I remember on Barney and Miller, I forget his name, the black dude who was the detective. He was typing and he was talking to the guy, and the guy's like, "That's incredible how you can type and talk at the same time." And he's like, "Not really. I learned to do this in college many years ago," or something like that. And then the guy reaches over and pulls the paper out and what he had typed. "Not really. I learned to do this in college years ago."
Yep.
So it was a scam. It was funny. That was a good show. That's not exactly on topic though. So we're all excited about this Fitbit story.
A little bit off.
It does. People sometimes talk about information and being creepy, and that feels a little bit close to creepy to me. But in this case, it's being used in, I think, a useful way. But can that be turned against people? Can that wearable information be requested from a company to see where you are?
I'm sure it could be subpoenaed. And I got to defend Joshua Hughes' honor here. He said, I said you create plenty of pollution, not need to create hydrogen. You don't just walk out and scoop up hydrogen. Creating the fuel cells takes a lot of energy. So you are vindicated, Joshua. I apologize for my rare Dan fail. So currently most hydrogen fuel comes from splitting methane molecules.
So wait a minute.
Go ahead.
So wait a minute, Dan. You're saying that Josh was right and you were that other thing?
I was, you got to say it right. You said, Josh, that would make you right, and I would be the other thing. You see, there's a delivery. You guys don't have the juice. Travis says, I heard Cadeas loves Facebook. Just kidding, Cadeas. John Brown, if Facebook provided a tool nearing the capability of, say, SharePoint, without requiring the purchase of dedicated service by the clients, they might have a shot, but only if their collaborative scope is more than a document. I imagine it's not entirely there yet, or they would open it. I think it's invite only, or I forget how they do it. Okay, so next is the world's biggest chocolate maker. It says we are running out of chocolate. This is actually an interesting story on a couple different levels. There's the obvious we're running out of chocolate angle, as noted. The problem is, for one, a supply issue. Dry weather in West Africa, where I have lived, specifically in the Ivory Coast and Ghana, where more than 70% of the world's cocoa is produced, has greatly decreased production in the region. A nasty fungal disease known as frosty pod. I like Alan, but he's got a real frosty pod. Hasn't helped either. The International Cocoa Organization estimates it has wiped out between 30% and 40% of global cocoa production. Because of this, cocoa farming has proven a particularly tough business. Many farmers have shifted to more profitable crops like corn as a result. In addition, the demand from China has blown up. The Chinese have discovered a sweet tooth and have more money thanks to large U.S. big box retail stores. So that's interesting. But the tech angle here is one solution that is being bantered about is the notion that they would GMO the issue. They would create hybrid or genetically modified cocoa plants that could produce perhaps be more resistant to this frosty pod and would have a greater yield. And when I shared this story, I think my comment was, oh God, they're going to do to the cocoa bean what they've done to the grocery store tomato.
Yeah, exactly.
And make it bland. And as just a side, as an asterisk to this story, I read somewhere, and I forgot to add it, but I read that they're considering trying to do a GMO chestnut tree, because chestnut, it's a fascinating article on Wikipedia, and it's really interesting how there was a blight. The chestnut was a big giant tree that was beautiful wood, and it was a big industry in my region and others making furniture. We exported around the world. And then all of a sudden there was some blight, and it killed off all. It didn't kill them, but just when you grow a chestnut, it gets the blight at whatever age, and it doesn't grow into the giant tree it used to. So there are, I think, none left, or very few left. But you can't grow chestnuts anymore, and it's a shame. It's a beautiful, large tree. So any thoughts on the chocolate shortage, or the notion of creating a fungus-resistant, higher-yielding cocoa bean, or the Great American Chestnut?
Well, I didn't know about the Great American Chestnut, so I have nothing to comment there. It concerns me always when we think we know more about what really makes good food than what we really know. It's like people have a God complex. They think they're as good as God, and they know as much as the deity that created it would know about what to do with it. And so we tinker with this stuff, and we don't know what we're doing. No. Doing with it. We don't know what we're doing with it, and we tinker with it, and then we declare that somehow we've we've made an improved product, but we don't have any idea until 20 years later when all the side effects actually show up. It's terribly dangerous to tinker with our food supply this way.
I don't think so. I mean, the seedless watermelon has resulted in few deaths. I
Um,
got to note that Michael Ellis, you began by basically paraphrasing Donald Rumsfeld and then referencing God. I just thought that was interesting. To know you know, what you know, you know, you know. Go ahead, Kevin.
yeah, I was saying I think it's okay to modify food. It's just there's a lot of resistance to actually identifying the modified food. Really, that's a consumer issue
And you
more
can't
than anything
control it.
else.
You got a Jurassic Park situation because the way that these things, you know, breed. I mean, there are cases where Monsanto's gone after a farmer who didn't even know that he was growing their product because like birds dropped it or pooped, and that slowly over a few years, for lack of a better term, contaminated his non-Monsanto crop, and it became, you know, I don't know what other word, the non-negative word for contaminated, but
Infiltrated. I don't know.
infiltrated or populated, whatever. But
Yeah,
you
populated.
can't really have a yard of or you know acreage of one crop and then it not kind of spread naturally. Okay.
I ran out of things to say too. Pam just that sigh that was given that pretty much summed it up.
Okay. I think that was Michael, but it sounded like Pam. Okay.
Yeah.
Next up is, and this is just for fun. Students are tweeting pictures of their healthy school lunches with the hashtag. I'm pulling it up now. It's thanks Michelle Obama. So what they're doing, because she has her campaign for healthier food, and
She's
so
cooking all the lunches in schools now, right?
I don't know exactly what her role is. She's an advocate for healthier lunches, and you know, who wouldn't be? But so students are tweeting these things. Some of them are just hysterical. Here's some sort of paste that's being issued with an apple. Here's a hot dog with an apple. Here's a sad SpongeBob. Here's a kid holding his lunch upside down. Here, there's one. My favorite is a side by side with a lunch. Here's one. Obviously, this is sarcastic. Thanks, Michelle Obama, for these new healthiest and delicious lunches. There's one that's a side by side of a lunch from France and U.S. And of course, the French one is far superior to the U.S. counterpart. Here's one showing all the stuff that they've thrown away. Anyway, I just thought that was humorous. So I included that in our tech show list. We have any comments on Michelle Obama's Healthy Lunch Initiative before I go to something someone cares about? All right,
I
next.
have. Can't say it.
He's a not a regular MSNBC viewer, Mr. Ellis.
That's
not.
absolutely fair to say.
Okay. There's no picture of Rachel Maddow on his mantle. Okay, next up, we have two programs. We have this program, Google Plus Week, which is every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. We also have a different program called Our Android Week, where we discuss, wait for it, Android. That is at 9 p.m. on Monday Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific on Monday, Our Android Week. You're welcome to watch either or both.
What are you covering this week, Dan?
Well, we have, funny you should ask, we have a couple topics here. Three, in fact, that we've lined up so far. One is Relative Wave gets acquired by Google and starts giving its $80 app design tool away for free. And the description here is Form is a visual editor meant to help designers and developers make visually functional prototypes of apps without writing code. Form is not an app maker. That is, you don't end up with an app that'll do much on its own or that you can distribute. Instead, you'll get a rough prototype, a feel for whether or not a potential design and many of its nuances, like the specifics of how an animation flows, are heading in the right direction. If doodling on a napkin is a 1, and actual coding the app is a 10, building a prototype with Form is somewhere around a 6. So, Alan, can you explain? I'm guessing this is sort of like a mock-up that you can maybe put text in, but it doesn't do anything, and you can kind of like switch screens, and it's kind of like what someone would show you as, do you like the way that this app flows, before we really make the guts. Or if Kevin wanted to address that. Or if anyone has a clue.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about this on Monday.
Have you considered political office?
That was very well said. Yeah, that's very.
It's a tease. We'll find out on Monday.
Next,
That is actually, that's all it's supposed to be, is a tease. We're not supposed to discuss it here.
we can
Yeah.
hook you up with Craig Newmark so he can do non-denial denial. A non-denial denial is, I will not dignify that with a response. Or, that is an outrageous suggestion. I can't believe you asked me that. You can't be serious, right? Those are all non-denial denials.
Oh, yeah.
Classically
I
employed.
did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Correct.
That's a non-denial denial too.
No, that's a denial that turned out to be inaccurate in
That's
retrospect.
It's a lie in front of a judge.
AT&T.
Oh well.
There's some sort of bug. AT&T Nexus 6 bug prompts smartphone returns to Motorola, and I guess it's a dated software. We'll be discussing that, and then
If you hurry, you can find them on Craigslist.
oh my God, I've got my eye on the Nexus Q on Craigslist. I'm getting ready to pull the trigger.
Exactly.
Yep.
John Brown, the sound effect you need tonight is crickets.
Nice. Thanks,
Yeah.
John.
Touche. Android Auto is released to developers. So we'll be discussing that Monday. Again, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Michael Ellis, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
It was good.
You know your camera's
When I-
off.
No, my camera's not off.
It's off.
We're all looking at a black screen of you.
There you go.
I'm
You're
sorry.
back on.
I've got it running. Okay, am I on? Okay, so I'm. My Google Plus week was pretty good, but I came in this evening thinking I was going to mention something during this part of the show, and I can't remember what it was.
That was how many glasses ago?
Just one, no, two. I've lost count.
More
I think
evidence. More evidence.
I don't know. I forgot what I was going to tell you about.
Well, if
So-
you think about it, pop a Ritalin and get back to us.
Right. And I'm leaving for Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving next week. And we may have a show, right? But we may have a less populated show of panelists next
Yeah, I
week.
think it's a loose, fun thing we do
Right.
on the big holidays. And also, of course, President Obama is pardoning the turkey on Wednesday. And I got the email from the White House. It said there's limited space, so RSVP before Tuesday.
Are you
And-
going?
No, I'm not going.
Oh.
But what's just to clarify that, unlike as depicted in The West Wing, or perhaps as a result of that episode, they actually, both of the turkeys, there's the turkey that gets pardoned, and then there's the alternate turkey.
Right.
They are both sent to the farm in like Leesburg or somewhere. So
Well, that's-
one does not get eaten as depicted in The West Wing. I just wanted to, throw that out there.
In case.
But if you think
We're
of the
not-
other thing, chime in. Kevin, how was your Google Plus week? You already kind of shot your wad earlier with the other thing, or you were on Brad's show. Tell us how that went. What'd you think dealing with all those crazy Australian foreigners?
It was really nice. I got to be on Tech Webcast. It's episode 315. It's up there now. You can go to see it at techwebcast.info. We talked about the Wi-Fi that's going to start getting installed in New York City, and also Australia's getting Netflix. So we'll see what kind of content they get along with it, and will that pull away from people using a VPN and going to the U.S. site. And a couple other topics. It was a really interesting show. In terms of Google and Android stuff, I just got Android Lollipop today on my Nexus 5, so I'm playing around with it. I'm liking the notifications, and it seems like Google Now is even more useful than it was before. I'm also liking the look very much. Also, finally, I'm very, very excited to say that the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra is now back in operation. They've been having contract negotiations for a while, and they were not able to start their season this year. So they missed, I think, maybe like 4 to 6 weeks of the beginning of their season because there was a conflict between the musicians and management. And like I said, it's their second conflict in 2 years, and they finally were able to hammer something out, and they're back now, and hopefully they will be back at least until the next contract negotiation, where I think it's going to be a problem. But for now, I'm really happy they're back.
Are you just a fan, or are you a musician, or a participant, or what's your role with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra?
I used to be a season ticket holder. I've been watching them a long time over the years. I'm a big fan of classical music, and especially of attending classical music festivals. I mean, I love the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. I mean, their chorus is world class. I've seen them go through some declining times in the past couple of years or so because they've been running some deficits. And depending on which side you listen to, it's the musician's fault or it's the management fault. Mm-hmm. They had a big falling out between the musicians and management 2 years ago, and they were able to work it out. This negotiation was a lot more protracted, and they were a little further apart on their issues of how much money they should make, how much they pay for, and things like that. And they were able to come through with something. I don't know what they were able to do, but it's going to be an issue in the future as well. But I'm hoping they work out a little bit more of their issues.
I saw an interesting thing about amusement parks having an issue. And they're similar in that they're legacy entertainment formats. And then amusement parks are trying to figure out how to get kids interested because they're suffering a downturn because all these kids are on the mobile apps, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to figure out how to make it more exciting and more fast paced or whatever, like Disney World and those places. I thought that was really interesting. Is that contributing to? In other words, there's so many more forms of entertainment right on your phone that you're less inclined to go to the symphony, or what's the root of their, I assume, revenue shortfall that has resulted in strife between management not being able to pay as much as the unions want?
This one, I think, is more partially aging. Classical music really does skew older, and I think as time goes on, the fans of classical music are getting older, and there aren't as many people coming in who love it enough to actually go to concerts. That's part of it. Part of it is actually, what you said before. I mean, mobile devices. That's a draw on your time. I mean, that absolutely happens. In the situation of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, there have been deficits running for at least a decade. And
this has happened before. Vaudeville was killed off by radio and television, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. In this case, I think it's more. I mean, if I was to put out an opinion on what I think the real problem is, I think it's a management problem. As to specifically how bad the management problem is, I couldn't say. I would have to look a little bit more closely into it, but it's looking more like management is making some decisions about the money that's coming in and the money that's going out, because there was a lot of administration in this specific case that has come into the Atlanta Symphony, and it's I think drawn some money and some resources away from the actual musicians themselves. So it's hurting them. But in general, classical music is, in terms of concerts, they're just not able to draw as well as they used to. Partially because I don't think they're adapting as much. Even as amusement parks are changing what they're doing, I don't think they're changing. They're changing a little bit, but I don't think they're changing enough.
How do you change and adapt classical music?
No, you can. I mean, classical music used to be contemporary music for people, long time ago. But it's become a lot more rigid because they don't take on the modern classical music, which is film scores. If they did more film scores, people would show up more. If they would allow you to clap in between movements. The way they don't now, I think that would attract
they ban
more.
clapping?
No, you have a three movement, let's say a concerto, and you have the first movement ends, and nobody is allowed to clap. You know, you feel stiff.
They enforce
No,
that? I mean, how do they enforce
It,
that?
it,
There's no specific way to enforce it, but the culture doesn't permit it, doesn't it?
right.
Are
that
you,
is
is it like black tie or a suit or t-shirt and
Yeah, it's dressed
flip-flops?
up.
It's dressed up. It's not specifically black tie unless it's at least at the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, it's not black tie unless it's maybe a very special like premiere or something like that. Then you might want to dress up. But it's a little bit more casual now. They've loosened up a little bit. I do dress up when I go, definitely.
Even in New York, Kevin, it's not black tie required anymore.
Right. Uh-huh.
So you still definitely see people in black tie and long gowns. Usually the women in the long gowns and the men in the black ties, but not always. And but it's not. But it's not. You can go in a suit. You can go in a suit coat.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Get it
Yeah.
in.
But there's and the repertoire in general is sometimes they'll put some really challenging modern pieces up. So I mean, if they picked more music that people actually listen to, like I said, more film scores. Honest to goodness, I mean that's classical music. You know, if they put up stuff like from the Man Who Wasn't There, there's some great classical type pieces in that soundtrack. I mean, you don't have to just talk about John Williams stuff. I mean, that's more like classical pop stuff. But I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting classical music stuff that would be out there that would draw in more people. It's a difficult situation in general. There's actually a really good documentary. If anyone's interested in listening a little bit more about that, there's one that's being developed called Maestro that has information about that. That will be out, I think, next year. But if people are interested, they can look up the trailer on it. In fact, I'll find the trailer and put it in the comments.
That's a barrier to entry, really, because like a lot of young people don't even have a coat. I mean, a sport coat, right? All the women would have something. I mean, I don't know. The last time I wore a coat, like I just did a speech, I didn't wear it to the Chamber of Commerce or a presentation. I didn't wear like a sport coat. I didn't wear a tie. I just wore a white shirt and a jacket. If I do TV, I wear a coat, or if I have to do a TV commercial, I wear a coat. But I don't wear.
And it's all
people don't dress like that anymore.
It's all cultural. So last night I went to a fraternity alumni association event in New York, in Midtown New York, and I wore a jacket, I didn't wear a tie. I wore a dress shirt and a jacket, and and matching slacks. So I didn't have to wear a tie, but we were going to a bar, and nearly everyone in the bar had a tie on. So it's all cultural. You have to judge just like you do anywhere in the country. Anywhere in the world. You judge what you're wearing based on what everyone else is likely to wear.
Gotcha.
That's really Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. It's probably a little bit lower dressed down. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like they're need even a jacket there. There's plenty of people who go. They just have a nice shirt on and some slacks. That's not the barrier. The music is the barrier sometimes. That there's classical music out there. It's just sometimes they don't choose the classical music that people are listening to.
Quick question: have you been to CNN Center?
Yes,
Is that badass?
It is very nice. I always take people over there whenever people visit the Atlanta area.
Do you get to see
nice.
like the actual like studios where they're doing Anderson Cooper and all of Wolf's Situation Rooms and stuff?
We get to see a lot of that, and it's really funny when they ever tune into the producers who are actually getting the different cameras out, and there's no filter on that. Period. Whenever you get that, there's totally no filter on that.
So Tom Wheeler would not be amused with a trip to. Is it broadcast like on speakers so the guests, the tourists can see it or hear it?
Yeah, it is sometimes. At least when I was there, it got broadcast to us by accident. I think they were going to show the producer room, and all of a sudden the actual producer feed was coming through, and it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
And the fact that you could see what some of the people were looking at on their monitors who are not on camera but are just working in the area, and there's like movies up and stuff like that. It's like, okay.
They're like Netflixing and.
Yeah, they are. They're totally doing that. So
do
it's
they
pretty
charge,
funny.
or do you just go in, sign up, or do you have to get tickets?
No, They definitely charge, but you do get to do some stuff as well. Like they have a feature at the end where you can pretend to be a broadcaster, and they'll tape you, and then they'll have a whole CNN set, and then you can announce some things off of a teleprompter, and you can pair up with someone, and you can get that video later and share it with your friends.
The
That's cool.
museum has something like that. I haven't been there, but that would be neat to. I want to go there and check that out. That's in Northern Virginia. Okay, so Alan Furstenberg, if you're around, if you want to discuss how your Google Plus week and give us your weekly book sales update. Okay, so while we're waiting for Alan, my week was good. We're getting ready. We got to print the paper early. We're going to print, I think, Tuesday night because Thanksgiving. We normally print Thursdays, so we're printing it early this week.
Oh, so we're going to have a clear and alert Dan on Friday night.
Yeah, I won't be the zombie that I often am. And I
Right.
want to show you, I was discussing my amazing pizza, so I have a slice left. I'm going to show you because Michael Ellis cannot have this slice because he's not here.
But I should have a slice.
I
It's
make
true.
a New York style pizza, and if you Google Dan McDermott pizza, you'll see some videos. But here's the one I made last night. I put on Facebook. I'll show it in a sec. I put on Facebook. I said, "This is my post-Obama immigration speech pizza," because we can all agree on something. This is badass pizza. All right, so let's see here. This is the top there, and
It
then you
looks
see
nice.
just the perfect charring on the bottom.
Yep. Very good.
And there's the side view.
So what defines it as New York style pizza for you?
New York style is there's Chicago style, which is real thick,
Deep
and
dish.
and the I think the cheese is on the bottom, then the sauce. Pan pizza looks like this, but it's real thick, and it's literally fried in the pan. They put like 4 to 6 ounces of oil in a dark pan, and the pizza is literally fried as it cooks. So you get a real crispy, crunchy exterior that's the pan's touching. New York style is typically foldable.
Yep.
So you could fold it in the middle. This is cold from the fridge, so I'm gonna nuke it. But the idea is it's crunchy here when it comes out of my oven, and it's chewy in the middle, right? And it's foldable, and it's kind of thin, but it's not like a cracker crust.
Okay.
And Detroit's got a really crazy pizza if you look up Detroit style. But I highly recommend pizzamaking.com. They have a forum, and I'm a paying contributor just to support them because I've been like stalking them for years, getting ideas. But I just love making pizza, and I'm frankly getting pretty good at it. I've got a Blackstone oven, which is like $300 at Lowe's or $269 now,
Yeah.
down from I think I paid $4 something for mine. But it's got a rotating pizza stone on the
Mhm.
bottom, and then it's got a stationary pizza stone on the top, and so you got a gap like this, so you can slide your pizza in, and it's 60,000 BTUs. The sucker will get up to 1,200 degrees in like 12 minutes, and so you can make a Neapolitan style pizza there, where you use the Tipo 00 flour, which doesn't even brown until about 800 degrees, and you can do I have a video where I'm making a 60-second pizza. I think I pull it out at 62 seconds and it was overdone. So it's really cool. You can do like what you would normally have to spend thousands of dollars to get a brick oven, wood-fired pizza oven. With this Blackstone oven, you can do it for, $300. That's pretty cool. One trick. You want to introduce you when you're loading it in a real hot oven. You want to use a wood peel because you put a
Yep.
light dusting of flour, and the pizza will not stick to the wood as much as the aluminum. But then to adjust it and check it and pull it out, you want to use the aluminum peel. So you need both kinds because the
Oh,
aluminum
that's
peel will
a trick
not burn in the oven. The wood will.
That's a trick I didn't know. I've just learned something from you. I've made plenty of pizza, but I didn't know that.
I am becoming quite the aficionado, and I'm looking forward to eating this. I've discovered if I starve myself, because I'm like $158 right now, I should be 156 pounds. But if I go on a pizza binger, I'll hit like 160, and then I'll freak out and diet again. But if I don't eat anything for like 24 hours, I can eat pizza, and I don't gain any weight, except that little salt bloat you get, which lasts like 2 days, right? And there's no sugar in my pizza. and it's just tomatoes on top, crushed tomatoes from Italy.
That's great.
So there you
Loving
have it. That was my week. Alan, are you back? Are you? Well, this sucks. Alan can't give us his weekly sales spreadsheet for his book. He came back very briefly. Anything else you guys did? Michael, did you ever remember what you were going to say?
I don't. But I had a great interview this week, so there's
Awesome.
future earnings in the in my horizon, on my horizon.
What's your specialty? What do you do?
I do two different things. I either do interim management for companies, like stand in as a functional manager, a COO for a smaller business,
Mm-hmm.
or I do SAP implementation project management. Those are my things.
Have you considered putting a profile on Elance or similar sites?
I don't have a profile on Elance. I've looked at it, but they don't seem to. The people looking for the kind of work I do don't seem to look on Elance because there are no other profiles like mine there.
Hmm.
The-
And you're
the
looking at
there,
obviously
but-
you're checking out Craigslist, and
Sorry, what was that?
are you're looking at Craigslist and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Check out
And-
ZipRecruiter. We use them to hire people. I hire salespeople through ZipRecruiter. What they do, and they're we found out about them from This Week in Tech, or one of their shows. Craig found out about them. They're a sponsor of Leo's network. And what they do is when I put an ad, it'll put it on like 30 different sites and list it. But also you can put a resume there and you can look for things and respond. So I would check that out, ziprecruiter.com,
Okay.
and
I'll look.
it's pretty cool. It's kind of the new thing.
I had another unsolicited recruiter contact me from LinkedIn this week. I had a fantastic interview with him. It's a perfect fit. So
Excellent.
we'll see if it goes somewhere. We still have a few hurdles to get over, but the fit was quite good. So
Awesome.
we'll-
Cool. I hope that works out.
yeah, thanks.
So last chance for Alan, if you're there. All right, well, folks, thanks you. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Again, we have two programs. We have Our Android Week, and Cy. Oh, I got to do this. Cy says, "No pizza, no sugar. It's like a law." If you like getting trolled, which I obviously do because every time I come on this program, the whole panel trolls me. Then say like, go to Pizza Making Forum and say something like, how much sugar should I put on my sauce or something, and
Yeah.
people will just go ballistic. I mean, they become unhinged. There's no sugar in tomato sauce, and it's like some of these guys are so hardcore. It's like if you don't have someone joke that, it's like you got to have buffalo in your backyard, for the buffalo mozzarella, and grow your own tomatoes and basil and stuff. But yeah, so I agree. Although if you're making if you're making a sauce for kids, you might find them more receptive to it. But there's naturally occurring sugar in carbohydrates anyway, in the dough and the sauce, without having to add any. Anyway, thank you for watching. Our Android Week is every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. That's Monday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Our Android Week. I will be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow, just after the CBS News at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, Pacific, 8 a.m. And Google Plus Week is every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific on Google Plus and YouTube Live, the #1 show on Google Plus. 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific every Friday. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for commenting. And until next time, have an epic, awesome Google Plus Week.